Alright, hey guys, welcome again to Fire Alarms and Such, and today I'm going to be doing some tips and tricks to wiring up your conventional fire alarm panel. So, if we open up the cabinet, you'll be able to see all the wiring I have done within my panel. It's mildly extensive, but not overly crazy. This wiring configuration I have allows me to have one, two, three, four initiating zones, and one, two, and three NAC zones, and allows me to have Audible Silence because this is a 4 NAC zone panel. So, I'll get into how that works. But first off, we're going to start with wiring up your initiating devices. So, when wiring up your initiating devices, there are two options. There is a Class A wiring and a Class B wiring. My panel, zones 1 and 2, can be configured to both, or I should say either Class A or Class B. I have mine configured as Class A, meaning there are two sets of wires that go to each pull station, because zones 1 and 2 on my panel are pull stations. By the way, this is the ESC SIGA and the FCI MS2. So what happens is, first, there's a positive and a negative wire that runs out of the panel and over to the pull station. Some pull stations are 2-terminal and some pull stations are 4-terminal. The 4-terminal allows for supervision of the device. 2-terminal you can do it too, but it's a little harder. It's a little not as what's the word? Accurate, you could say. So the positive and the negative wires come into here, and they get hooked up to the positive and negative terminals of the pull station. And for simplicity, we're going to be discussing this as if it is a 4-terminal pull station. So then, in the back of the pull station, there's another set of positive and negative terminals. And those are going to come from the pull station back up to spots 3 and 4 of the panel zones. So what happens is the first two zones, or the first two wires I should say, go down, and that's the alarm loop. That is the loop that is supervising and waiting for the circuit to be completed for the alarm to sound. Because the way pull station works, the way a pull station works is it is basically just a switch. And right now the switch is in the open position, meaning that the circuit is open and it is not completed. When you flip the switch up, it completes the circuit and the panel will go into alarm. And then so now the circuit is completed, so the first two wires, the first set of wires is now energized because the circuit is completed. Now the circuit is broken. The second set of wires that comes from the panel is the supervision set of wires. Those wires come in and they complete a circuit within the pull station, but it's not the switch circuit, it's its own circuit. And the panel passes a small amount of current through those wires. And when that current gets broken, that means that something has happened to the pull station, or the wiring is not right, so the panel goes into trouble. Because the line is broken, and that means there's something wrong with your pull stations or smoke detectors. So that is how a 4-wire pull station works, or a Class A pull station. So then, we're going to talk about Class B zone. Sorry, I'm trying to get my keys back. We're going to talk about Class B zones. My smoke detector zones are set up with Class B, meaning this is a 2-wire Class B smoke detector. So what that means is there's a positive and there's a negative wire that comes in from the panel. And then there's a resistor between the two terminals. Right now in the smoke detector, the circuit is open, so there'd be no current flowing through. But because you put that resistor, it allows a small amount of current to flow through between the positive and the negative wires. and then that current goes back to the panel and says, okay, everything's right, so there's no need to worry. But as soon as that resistor gets pulled out, the circuit is broken, and the panel goes into trouble. But then, when the alarm is noticed on the smoke detector, the main circuit is completed, allowing a lot more current to go through than just what the resistor would go through. And the higher current tells the panel this is an alarm. That's basically how a Class B zone works. So, smoke detectors can either be 2-wire, like this, and this works for pretty much any initiating device. Like, I could do that for pull stations, but I did a 4-wire, because I didn't want to mess with resistors with these. And I wanted to save my resistors. So, Class B zones also work for pull stations. And, so then a 4-wire device, that is where there's another set of wires inside. You can see I have them wire nutted in there. And so the way I have mine labeled is I put labels everywhere on my panel about what everything does. So it says black tape on smoke zones is the alarm loop. So this is my alarm loop. This is the one that's waiting for the alarm for the circuit to be connected to send into alarm. Well, on 4-wire smoke devices, it kind of works like a Class A zone. So back there, those 2 wires, those would hook up to the smoke detector. And that would create a loop. And then you would take a power sync module, which is, or not sync, I'm sorry, supervision, which supervises the power flow through the alarm. And that is what is your supervision protection. And then so anytime one of those wires is broken, that's when there's trouble. So it basically just gives a second sense of supervision with a 4-wire device. So that is the difference between a 2-wire and a 4-wire smoke detector. You do have to watch out with panels. 2-wire smoke detectors are way more common on a panel than 4-wire. Here, I'll go to my manual. Go to the, oh, I'm in the wrong panel. Sorry about that. We go back to appendix. Okay. See, here's the list of all the 2-wire smoke detectors that work with my panel. And it continues on. Here's all the 4-wire smoke detectors that work with my panel. Yeah. So 2-wire are way more common and way easier to set up on a panel. So 2-wire detectors are way more easier to set up than 4-wire. So the NACs work the same way as a Class B zone, where it's just 2 wires that go in and then a resistor. So that's pretty simple. And then so now we're going to talk about Audible Silence on a panel that doesn't have the Audible Silence feature built in, because you can still do it. And so if you notice, it says NAC 4 strobes. Because this is NAC 1, here, the 2 NACs on my actual demo board. NAC 2 are the ceiling NACs, so they're in there. And then NAC 3 is just my little, like, trouble or pre-alarm NAC, or actually NAC 3 now is my trouble NAC. That's the stack light here. So this is just kind of a junction box now, unless I want to change out to something else. But yeah, so that's that. But this is a 4 NAC panel. Well, NAC 4 is wired up, and that goes between every single device. And on a device with 4 terminals, that is 2 terminals for the horn and 2 terminals for the strobe. You hook the horn terminals up to either NAC 1, 2, or 3, and then the strobe terminals on whatever zone gets hooked up to NAC 4. And NAC 4 on my panel says it cannot be silenced until the panel is reset. So even if you hit silence on the panel, the horns will stop, but the strobes will continue to flash on any 4-wire device. And resistors are very, very important in a panel. That is what provides your supervision in all Class B zones. So, even in zones that you don't have wired up to anything, you gotta put resistors in. Resistors are in everything. Because as soon as you take a resistor out, the panel will go into trouble. Screwdriver. Sorry, I know I've showed you before. So, as soon as you take a resistor out, the piano goes into trouble. Because it says, hey, the circuit's broken. Try to go look at that. As soon as you put the resistor back in, trouble goes away. And now it's back to system normal. So, that pretty much has been all your tips and tricks to wiring up a conventional fire alarm panel. My biggest takeaway, resistors and labeling with everything, whether it be tape or actual labels. You gotta label stuff, because, I mean, look at all the wires. They're the same. It's pretty much like it for every fire panel. So you just gotta remember to label your stuff. So, this has been your tips and tricks to wiring up a conventional fire alarm panel. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Audible Silence.